Hello, Mike. Nice
Hey,
to
Uncle. Good evening to you.
Yeah. No other people here.
Maybe you put the proposal a little bit late. When did you add the discussion?
Yeah. Yes, actually, we just finished it today. It's kind of late. Maybe we can wait 2 more minutes, and if the host not present, we can talk about it at the next time.
Sounds good to me. I also messaged you the cluster ID proposal that Laura has been working on for some time now. So maybe you can see if there's some overlapping as well.
I see Laura here.
Hello.
Hello, Laura.
How's it going? I see we don't have a host. I see the drama.
Yeah.
Check.
Let me try if I can share my screen.
Oh, yeah, I see some. Yeah, hold on, I'm messaging.
I can share my screen. I think nobody can share the screen, right?
Yeah, right. We need a host login to enable it, and I just saw that Paul and Jeremy can't make it, but let me see if they can pop in real quick. Give me like 5 minutes, 2 minutes here and see. Great.
Hey, Jimmy.
Hello.
Hello, Jimmy.
We need screen share powers.
All right, let me see what I can do here. I just got a new computer and and all my settings are gone.
The worst.
Also, I'm very sorry, but I'm only gonna be able to hang out for a few minutes today. Oh, sorry, folks. I'm on the web client and everything is different. I'm not sure I can. Let me log out and log back in as
Sure thing.
As admin.
Yeah. So should I move the agenda to the next meeting?
Yeah, I think it's up to you. I'm happy to hear and talk about it today, but I think you may want Paul and or Jeremy here, both of whom can't make it today. So I think it depends what type of feedback you want.
Yeah, it's great. I think Laura, the host is here.
Yeah, Jeremy's doing some
Yeah.
Zoom magic over there.
That's great.
All right, you should have screen sharing powers now.
Okay.
I hope.
Yes, I can confirm.
Here I'm request the review the proposal from Kamada project. It's about to adopt the class-side ID API. Okay, here I guess you can access the document, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can.
Yeah. I'll give a short introduction about the background. Kamada is the Kubernetes cluster management system. It enables you to run your workload across multi-clusters. And you can register your cluster by the join command. For example, here, member one is the cluster's alias, and then the cluster config is the cluster's configuration file. And after the cluster is joined to Kamada, Kamada will create a cluster object to access the cluster. We put the token to a secret. Here is just a reference to it. And after that, people can get the cluster's status from like this. And you can see the member cluster basic information. The problem is here. In the progress of registering a cluster, we didn't identify if the cluster has been joined before. So people might join the same cluster repeatedly with different alias by mistake. For example, people join the cluster with alias member one and join again with the yeah. So we need a way to identify the clusters joined in the Kamada kernel plan. Let's see. Cutting out.
Yeah, you're intermittently cutting out. I think we are getting the gist though.
Oh,
it's pretty good right now.
Maybe the problem, maybe the network problem. I'm not sure.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So we are going to propose a feature in Kamada project, and here I want to ask for a review to see if this is
I think you may have dropped a little bit, unless
In the
it's just my
tracks.
bit.
What? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you dropped out for a while there, and so I wasn't sure if you were still talking or not. Go ahead.
Yeah. With the during the joining process, Commander will look for if the cluster has defined the API. Yeah, maybe we will see if it has the name with ID. If cluster has the cluster property, we just tick it as a cluster identifier. But if cluster no cluster property, we will tick the Kube system namespace UID as the identifier. And at the meantime, we may create a cluster property on the cluster, something like this. I want to know if this is the appreciate use case of a cluster property. Laura?
Yeah. So I think the part that the only part that's different to me, I guess, is the purpose or value of the ID in the cluster API as opposed to the id.k8s.io value in the cluster property API. Because I think they're trying to be the same thing. And also just part of the reason the about API is like out of tree is because it was very difficult to agree to what an ID field in, well, this, I guess this is this the cluster API that's specific to K-Armada? Oh, I see.
Sorry, I can't, maybe I can't follow you well.
Sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. So I think the ID field you want to put in the cluster API, which I understand to be a cluster kind in the K-Armada API group, karmada.io API group, and the cluster property of the name id.k8s.io. I think they're like the same information. And I think the intention of the about API and cluster property is that id.k8s.io, the value that's attached to the cluster property with that name is like the definitive source of truth for the cluster's name identification. So I think just one point is do we need to put the ID in this cluster spec as you described under the cluster API heading if you're going to be mirroring it and using it from the cluster property kind?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think the cluster API change is just a draft proposal. We need to discuss with the Kamada community. Here, I want to know if it's the
Gotcha.
If this use case is a cluster property helps in
yeah. So I think if I like separate from whether you're going to put the ID in this K-Armada cluster API, then the proposal here
Yeah.
related to cluster property is correct. So definitely using it to store the name and defaulting to applying the cube system namespace UID is completely in line with the cluster property KEP and what we want to go into this field for anything that's authoritative to give the cluster a name.
Okay, yes, I think its answer is yes, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I think separately we can debate either if as an implementation detail, it's valuable or not valuable to also put that in the K-Armada cluster API or not. So we can talk about that at a different time. And I understand that that's a separate proposal to take to K-Armada to see if it's valuable there, if it's valuable enough to be in the cluster property API for K-Armada's purposes.
Yeah.
Hongkai, I have a question. So the cluster properly lives in the member cluster, right?
Correct.
So what about the Kamada cluster API? Is that lives in a more centralized, like a management API level?
Centralized management logo. What centralized management? I didn't get it.
I am wondering, does the cluster API you're proposing also lives in the member cluster?
No. If the cluster, are you talking about this API?
Laura's question is the cluster properly lives in the member cluster, and the cluster API that Hongkai is proposing lives on a more managed level.
I see.
Yeah, that's the
So they're not
maybe probably I think. I think we'll make an flag or an option for user to decide if it allowed Kamada to create the object on their cluster.
Yeah, I see if the K-Armada cluster API is for the purposes of a config cluster maintaining like centralized information for all clusters, like then I see that that's like a totally separate use case as cluster property. Before I thought they were doing the same thing, but I understand what you're saying. And that is why both are probably needed.
Yes. Here I have another question. I'm a little bit confused between the class ID CAP and the implementation about the spec.name not defined by CAP but present in the cluster property API. So I want to know why and what's the difference.
Yeah, good catch. That should just be metadata.name. So I think we just typoed it around at some point, so we can clean that up.
Okay, now, or if we want to find the cluster identifier, I need to consult to the spec name or the metadata name.
It should just be metadata.name, and I'll take spec.name out. It's not supposed to be there.
Do you see the spec name should not be there?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. No, thanks, Laura.
Totally.
Okay, I think I'm done here. Anyone have questions about it?
Does anyone else have any questions or comments for Hongsai?
I have a question, Laura. This
Yeah.
is Ishmeet. Yeah.
Okay.
If we want to know more about the Caramata API, where we can go, Hongsai? Oh, there is a link here.
Here is a reference about the Caramata Cluster API. You can see here.
Just trying to understand the multi-cluster scope of the API a little bit more.
So sorry.
Yeah, I was just trying to understand the scope of the API. Yeah, this is good enough. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, if no more questions, I think I'm done here. And I will send the another proposal to Caramata community.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely keep us posted, or if you if we want to sync up more, I'm happy to connect to. So just let me know. You can hit me up in Slack or DM me if I can be useful to that conversation too.
Okay, and maybe I can give a demo after the feature has done
Cool.
at Caramata.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. I just remember I have another question. Yeah. Why this question is also in let me see, there is yeah, there is an issue also asking why we organize the API in the server model.
Yeah, I think this is, I mean, fundamentally the layout was from KubeBuilder. So if we have some beef with how it's laid out, we can change it, and also maybe want to.
Okay, I will try to see if any problem here. Maybe a yeah. If I maybe I can request a change. Maybe.
Sure. Yeah. Totally. And if there's something that also, like, if this is something we need to upstream into KubeBuilder to make KubeBuilder more.
And
yeah. Okay.
Oh, go ahead, Scar, if you had a comment.
No, I would talk later. In fact, let me complete. I had few questions, not regarding Caramata, but in general about the SIG multi-cluster. So first of all, let Hongsai complete whatever he's saying.
Okay, gotcha. We'll come back to you. But Hongsai, yeah, I think if, what was I trying to complete the thought of? Okay, here we go. Yeah, if we can, we're definitely open to changing this. We were just using the KubeBuilder boilerplate. And then if it also means that there's something valuable that we can merge upstream to KubeBuilder so that it's like more correct or a better option, then I'll have into doing that as well, because that's where the organization came from. All right. Thank you so much, Hongsai. Again, happy to connect later with the Caramata proposal too, if I can help. And then thanks for pointing out the inconsistency with the about API implementation and the KEP. So we can definitely clean that up. Sanskar, you can go ahead with your questions.
Okay, so hi everyone. I have few questions in general regarding SIG multi-cluster. Like I was exploring some of the SIGs where I can fit myself in, and a little bit about me. I am currently a beginner. I'm not actually a beginner programmer. It's been like 1 year since I'm in programming at Google Summer of Code 2022 participant with OSGeo. And currently I'm trying to contribute in Kubernetes in some field that aligns with my core interest. And the thing that aligns something with my interest is like day one and day two cluster based operations like cluster APIs, and SIG multi-cluster is the place where I want to contribute. And I read about KubeFed and how it is fundamentally different from Karmada and open cluster management. So few questions that I wanted to ask regarding the scope of this SIG. Like first thing that I came to realize is that we are definitely trying to make some tools that might be usable for multi-cluster management for sure. But do we have? But I saw that there are various projects that are fundamentally being built to add the capabilities in Kubernetes to have multi-cluster management tools like Karmada to help these tools like Karmada and open cluster management. Right. So can you tell me a little bit more about how we are doing it and a little bit about all the projects that we are aligned with?
Yeah, so the actual chairs of SIG Multicluster are Paul and Jeremy, neither of who are here, but I'm happy to give my take on it, and then we'll defer to them as well for maybe more color in a future meeting. But in general, the multi-cluster space, while there are many projects in the ecosystem, remains kind of new, especially from the perspective of what the role is of upstream Kubernetes to fully manage that process. And part of that, I think, is other stuff is going on in even just single cluster world. And then I think for example, working group multi-tenancy, there's some intersection there too, just about what are the different options for people who want bigger deployments or different deployments than just isolating single clusters to one thing. So I think the role of SIG multi-cluster, there a couple of years ago, which predates me, and maybe some folks here were there, but was tackling a lot of projects like cluster registry, the idea of how do we get different workloads onto different clusters, which is what Work API and KubeFed previously were working on. And some of those projects had more ability to be something that could be agreed upon upstream, some of them less. The latter case, I believe cluster registry kind of stopped being a project that SIG multi-cluster wanted to solve in a general way in upstream because the use cases were too numerous and too diverse. And then most recently, the flagship project has been the MCS API. And I think an interesting thing about that and other multi-cluster related APIs like the Gateway API, which is owned by SIG Network, but has a multi-cluster gateway component, or network policy, which multi-cluster network policy is now something under discussion. The role of SIG multi-cluster is to try and make sure that everything that's still happening in single cluster works for or doesn't super conflict with what we have going for multi-cluster in the upstream ecosystem. And then try and figure out best practices, patterns, or suggestions for how other projects can fit in with a standard that leaves enough room for implementation outside of upstream, but that doesn't make this big smorgasbord of stuff that never works together. So if you read the MCS API KEF, there's a lot of stuff in there and a lot of history too about keeping it really implementation light and just describing the bare bones of the API and the standardization we all have to agree to, and then implementations can be happy to plug in however they want. So going forward, at least the position of the SIG right now is that there will be lots of ecosystem projects that are separate from core in core and like Kate's like KK repo that implement the standards that SIG multi-cluster proposes, debates, or otherwise organizes around. And then the other side of it is that SIG multi-cluster needs to keep tabs on what's happening in single cluster upstream Kubernetes to make sure that those don't conflict wildly with this multi-cluster feature we're trying to maintain and provide for like an ecosystem of implementations to do. Did that answer your question?
Yep, that really made great sense to me, and it was a great explanation, I would say.
Okay,
And,
good. Sorry if TMI.
No, it was great. A few things that I would like to ask, so it really makes sense that SIG multi-cluster is actually trying to manage all the stuff that is going around, and it is being as a advocate between upstream Kubernetes and those projects that are trying to, make strides in multi-cluster management capabilities. So that makes sense. And do we have any plans of ramping up KubeFed, or are we planning of actually trying to integrate the capabilities that Karmada and Open Cluster Management possess right now in KubeFed, or something else? Do we have any plans on road?
Yeah, I think KubeFed itself has kind of like the maintenance and the sort of, how to say, like the pressure to like get that towards beta slowed down a lot, and then the work API is kind of a new successor to the idea, which is being worked on by a couple of people in here. And Mike, feel free to jump in if you want to talk a little bit about that. So that's definitely sort of the slot where there's a lot of activity about that specific problem of workload distribution. And then there are definitely some other spaces. I'll actually ask you to reference in the meeting notes from March 8th, there was sort of a conversation of like, what should we do next? And so I think that there's some good ideas in there, but I also think that it's kind of just a matter of when someone has the bandwidth to sort of pull those, off while like some folks are working on work API and some folks are working on getting the MCS API to GA. So I think those are some good references in the March 8th notes, just to see what else we've been talking about historically. Okay,
I will reference them. And cool. One more thing from Kubernetes contributor perspective, like you surely would be a Kubernetes contributor. So like you are involved with SIG multi-cluster. So do you have to work with some other SIGs, like maybe cluster APIs that is the part of cluster lifecycle, like sometimes?
Yeah, totally. Okay. And I think SIG multi-cluster in particular is in a interesting spot where it operates in some ways similar to a working group, because it like crosses a lot of different other SIGs, and and as we just mentioned, also like things outside of the core Kubernetes ecosystem. But that's definitely true in my experience in the SIG.
Makes great sense. I was able to get a lot of things, and it really clarified whatever doubts I had. Thanks a lot, Laura.
Cool. Yeah, and feel free to also message me on Slack, either in the SIG multi-cluster room, or you can DM me if you have some more questions. I'm happy to talk multi-cluster all the time.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Okay, cool. There is nothing else officially on the agenda, but were there any other questions or comments from anybody else? Going once, going twice.
So I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm late, so I'm not sure if we have discussed. I saw a question in the multi-cluster channel. There's a question about KEP 1645. I don't know if we have discussed this in this meeting.
Let me open up the Slack real quick.
Hello, Ron.
Yes. Okay, I see. Why target port is not defined as service port, why ports are part of service port import, expectance of status, several questions, multi-level service. Okay, I did not see this Slack message yet, but I can definitely respond there or dig into it.
Yeah, there way maybe if there enough discussion, we can
Yeah,
make this agenda for next
Okay.
next time.
yeah, 100%. I agree.
Great. Yeah, that's all.
Cool.
Oh, one more question about recording. I missed
Yeah.
the last time's community meeting. I assume there's a recording, but I
Yeah.
don't cannot seem to find it yet.
Okay, I'll ask Paul. Paul is the recording wizard who gets them onto the YouTube. So I'll poke him to get it up to date.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Kids. All right. Anybody else have thoughts, questions, comments? Going once? Going twice? All right. Well, thank you for coming to the June 14th meeting of SIG Multicluster. And we'll chat in the Slacks and the DMs, and then also catch up with the rest of our action items for next meeting. As you were mentioning, Ryan, we can talk about this next point. And other than that, everybody have a great day. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you, Laura. Bye.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Hi, Rain.